At this stage, one of the things that I'm interested in working on is the light. In particular, I want to work on the light on each side of the nose. So let's zoom in a little bit here. One of the things that you'll notice is that this is going to be really tricky to try to remove this. I want to remove this and create a different type of a highlight. So in order to do that, let's merge to top. On a Mac, press Shift, Option, Command E. On Windows, press Shift, Alt, Control E. Let's name this new layer Light. Here what I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and go to my healing brush and then drop down to the patch tool. Now with the patch tool, what I'm interested in doing is making a patch selection of this area of light. Now in order to use the patch tool, you have to be on a layer with all of the content. Here we'll then click and drag this to a new area. Now where we drag this to is going to be kind of interesting. We want to try to find nice tone here, so we'll go ahead and drag and drop. Now if we didn't get it right away, what we might want to do is press Command H on a Mac, Control H on Windows. And for the most part, I think that's looking really quite good. Let's press Command or Control H again. And then let's draw another selection here. And we had to press Command or Control H again just to be able to see that selection. You may have noticed that I inadvertently dragged it a little bit, so I needed to show that. So again, whenever you press Command or Control H once, press it again to bring that back. Okay, well here let's just go through this and work on these little teeny areas that we might notice that need a little bit of help. And I'm just going to make my way through here, trying to bring in just a little bit of some of this detail, trying to follow these lines here as well as I can and retouch this content. And I think for the most part, we did a pretty good job on getting out those shadows. Now, it's not perfect by any means, but it is looking a little bit better. Let's look at our before and after. Here's before, and then here's after. Now one of the problems is that it made the nose look a little bit more wide. So now we need to figure out how can we compensate for that. How can we then add some of the highlight back, but perhaps not quite so dramatically. We don't want it that hard or that strong. Well, one of the ways that we can do that is with curves. So here, let's click on the adjustment layer icon and choose curves. What I'm going to do is click and drag down. I want to create a darkening curve. And then I want to invert my mask. To invert the mask, press Command I. Next, we need our brush tool, right? So we grab our brush tool. We're going to paint with white with a nice small brush at a real low opacity. I'm going to press 1 on the keyboard to go to 10%. Yes, that low, really, really low, so that I can just incrementally paint on each side of the nose. And what this will do is if you darken this area, and if you darken it carefully, you can thin the nose back out. And so here we're just going to try to do that a little bit, darkening this up. I'll press 3 on the keyboard to go to 30% opacity, adding a bit more now that I'm getting familiar with how this tone looks and how this works. And again, what you should see is not a huge change. You should be thinking, gosh, not a lot's really happening. But let's take a look. Here's that before and then after. Again, just darkening down those edges, making it so that it's a little bit more pushed in on each side. The other thing that's fun here is we can go into these different channels. Like we can go and add a little bit of red, which I think that needs, and then go back to the RGB and darken it up just a touch more as well. So here's that before and then after, adding that shadow. Well, now the nose needs a highlight. So here, click on the adjustment layer icon, choose curves. Let's brighten this up. Let's go into the red channel, add a little bit of red there. Also in the blue-yellow channel, add a little bit of yellow. So I realize that was a bit fast, but basically what we're doing here is with curves, we'll go into our different channels making changes. In this case, in the RGB, drag up, brightening. In the red channel, drag up a little red. And then in the blue-yellow channel, perhaps drag down and add a little yellow. Now you'll never know if you're going to nail it, if it's going to be right. So that's part of the reason why I was going fast. I'm just tinkering. I just want to try something. Next step, invert the mask. Press Command or Control I. From here what we'll do is grab our brush tool, nice low opacity again, and we'll just look to start to bring in this highlight down the middle of the nose. And so I'm going to go ahead and look to brighten this up. I'm just brightening this up incrementally. Add a little round circle there, also down on the chin. And I'm going to add a little bit more here on the forehead as well. And it looks like in this case I have a bit too much color in this, but nonetheless, it's starting to look pretty good here. Just adding a little bit of that highlight on the nose. Here's before and then after. So in regards to color, I'll go back and experiment with this. There's a touch too much yellow and a touch too much red. But it's important to have a little bit of color because as you brighten, essentially you lose color. Also, what we can do, as you'll see in a few minutes, is we can start to take advantage of adding this kind of golden type of a highlight to our photograph in order to bring out the highlights in some interesting ways. Well, let's explore what we've done so far. Here it is, before and then after, really reshaping the nose and also modifying the overall look. Now, with the nose that I'm looking at now, I'm not convinced on the color that I made it, how I changed it. So if ever you want to disable the color from your curves layer, just take it down to a blending mode of luminosity. That will then just show the luminance value of that area. And I think that looks a little bit better. Until I'm ready to make all of those highlights that warm, I'm going to stick with this luminosity here. I'm also going to go ahead and lower my opacity a little bit. Go to my mask panel and increase the feather of those brush strokes a little bit. That will soften out all of those brush strokes that I've done. And then now I think that's looking a lot better. Again, that overall before and after is improving the overall situation. With the darkening effect, again, I want to lower that. Again, it was a little bit too high for me. And you always want to look away and look back in order to make those judgments so that your images will ultimately look their best.